Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Charts with Dan. We're going to be talking about the box office, what little of it there was this past weekend, but most importantly, the other shoe finally dropped on Wonder Woman 1984 in a surprising way. It certainly surprised me, the strategy that Warner Brothers ended up going with, and probably more like AT&T, their corporate parent. So we're going to talk about the ramifications of that and my thoughts, but first, let's see what was going on at the box office. And the big story really is that there was not much. As a matter of fact, this was the worst weekend since the box office reopened with new releases back in August, when we saw movies like The New Mutants and Unhinged coming out, partially because hundreds of locations closed due to expanded restrictions in many states. And that really shows in the results when we look at Freaky, which repeats at number one, but had about a two-thirds, about a 66% drop from its first weekend at $1.2 million. As a matter of fact, that's the only film in the top five to even break $1 million. The War with Grandpa is there at number two. Let Him Go at number three. Come Play at the number four spot. And then a re-release of Tim Allen's The Santa Claus there at number five with a little under $500,000. But really just a awful weekend, partially due to the fact that there are no new wide releases, big studio releases. We're dealing with the same slate of movies, more or less, that we've had for the past few weeks. Let's look at the 2020 box office domestically, and as it has been for the last month or so, really, no change. We have Tenet still. It registered under $500,000 in total revenue over the past week, so it looks very likely to stay right there at the number 8 spot. And, Wonder Woman, we'll see what it does, but this is likely to be close to what the final list is going to be for 2020. Let's look at the worldwide box office list. And again, the movie that we've been talking about for about the past month, Demon Slayer, the movie, continues its march up the chart. It has broken $250 million worldwide. It's also opened in places like Taiwan and Hong Kong, in addition to Japan. So that number is just going to keep growing. And it seems possible that it may break into the top five, surpassing Sonic the Hedgehog's worldwide gross. So Demon Slayer, the movie, continuing to do great business in Japan and other countries where the theater business is in a little bit better shape than it is here. And that really has been the driving question behind what's going to happen with Wonder Woman 1984. It has had many different release dates. I think at this point it's had more release dates than The New Mutants did, but it was eventually scheduled to come out right around Christmas. And the question has been whether it's going to stick to that date. And the answer is yes and no, because Warner Brothers announced last week that Wonder Woman will indeed still hit theaters on Christmas Day as planned. However, it will also be a day and date release on HBO Max, their streaming service. It will not be for an additional fee like Disney did with Mulan. So if you have HBO Max, or if you can get HBO Max, which is one aspect that we'll talk about in just a second, you will be able to watch Wonder Woman 1984 from the comfort and safety of your own home on Christmas Day. But let's look at a little bit further the details of this deal. So as I mentioned, it will open domestically in theaters and on HBO Max simultaneously on December 25th. In international countries where theaters are open, it will open on December 16th. In China, it will open on December 18th. So international markets are going to be getting this movie a little bit early, a week early for China, about 9 days earlier for other countries. So we are going to see a worldwide release leading into the domestic release of Wonder Woman 1984. Now, Warner Brothers reportedly, for chains that are showing the movie, has worked out a deal where they will only be taking 40 to 45% of the box office revenue instead of the customary approximately 60%. And we've talked about this before, how the money flows when in normal times when a movie's opening in theaters, and it's generally that a studio will get a higher percentage of the opening weekend gross, typically around 60%, and that will go down as time goes on, so that theaters will keep more of the money the longer that a movie plays. Of course, the lion's share of the gross is going to come in those first 2 or 3 weeks, so a lot of that money flows back to the studio. But reportedly, as part of the arrangement for theaters to sign off on this arrangement with the studio for Wonder Woman to launch simultaneously, this 40 to 45% split was part of the negotiation so that theaters could keep more of that money. Now, here was a really interesting part. So HBO Max and and theaters are going to get the movie for 31 days. For 31 days, you can see it in the theater, you can see it at home. After that, theaters are going to get the movie exclusively for 28 days. So this was, again, reportedly another contentious point that was negotiated, was that there is a period of exclusivity for Wonder Woman 1984 to be seen in theaters. After both of those windows elapse, after 60 days, the movie will go to premium video on demand. So it will be able to purchase or rent for $15, the way that Universal did with Trolls World Tour, the way that we've seen with so many other releases. So this is really an approach from Warner Brothers that embraces all of the different release strategies. Theatrical exhibition, at-home streaming, a shortened theatrical window, premium video on demand. It's like they looked at all of the options that were in front of them and just said, we're going to try them all. Let's just try them all and see what happens. What this approach means and how it's going to work, I'm not really quite sure yet, but there has been some positive reaction from some inside the exhibition industry. For example, this was a statement from Byron Berkeley, who's the president of the Independent Cinema Alliance. This is a group that advocates for independent cinema owners and represents many independent cinemas. The film's pandemic model, which does not reflect a long-term formal shift in the studio's distribution strategies, will ensure that moviegoers across North America will see Wonder Woman in theaters and help save the day for our cinemas this Christmas. We are extremely grateful for the extraordinary and unrivaled support and leadership from our valued industry partner Warner Brothers. After boldly launching the Labor Day reopening of movie theaters across the country with their release of Christopher Nolan's Tenet, Warner Brothers has again shown their unwavering commitment to theatrical exhibition by virtually saving Christmas for our industry, keeping Wonder Woman 1984 on December 25th. And listen, I understand that statement, because if Wonder Woman 1984 had gone away completely, there would be nothing in theaters for quite some time. So particularly independent theaters can use anything they can get. I understand that statement. At the same time, I'm not exactly sure this is the lifesaver that statement makes Wonder Woman 1984 out to be, particularly because it's going to be on HBO Max at the same time. But before we get to that, I also want to talk about, and this is very interesting, this is from Adam Aron. Now, Adam Aron is the AMC Theaters CEO, and it just goes to show you the different reaction, what a difference 6 months makes, and also what a difference being cut in on the deal makes. So this was Adam Aron's response to Warner Brothers' plan to release Wonder Woman 1984 in theaters and on HBO Max simultaneously. Quote, "For many months, AMC has been in active and deep dialogue with Warner Brothers to figure out how best this cinematic blockbuster could be seen at AMC theaters in these unprecedented times. Given that atypical circumstances call for atypical economic relationships between studios and theaters and atypical windows and releasing strategies, AMC is fully on board for Warner Brothers' announcement today. We have instituted novel approaches with other movie studios this year. We are doing so again, this time with Warner Brothers, to facilitate the specific release of this important movie." Although it is interesting to see how many times in this statement he says atypical, novel approaches, specific release. So even in endorsing this approach, you can tell that AMC there is saying, like, we're on board this time for this movie. But still, this is a strikingly different tone than the one that Adam Aron struck when Universal decided and unilaterally, according to them, announced that they were going to take future movies after the success of Trolls World Tour to be launched on premium video on demand and at theaters simultaneously. Let's get in the Wayback Machine and let's go back to April. I know it seems like an eternity ago. This is the statement after Trolls World Tour came out and Universal said they may continue this approach. Quote, "This radical change by Universal to the business model that currently exists between our two companies represents nothing but downside for us and is categorically unacceptable to AMC Entertainment. AMC believes that with this proposed action to go to the home and theaters simultaneously, Universal is breaking the business model and dealings between our two companies. It assumes that we will meekly accept a reshaped view of how studios and exhibitors should interact with zero concern on Universal's part as to how its actions affect us. It also presumes that Universal, in fact, can have its cake and eat it too, that Universal film product can be released to the home and theaters at the same time without modification to the current economic arrangements between us." Now, we talked about this 6+ months ago when it came out, but it's very abundantly clear that the only reason that Adam Aron was mad there is not that he is trying to save the exhibition experience. He was angry that Universal was going to cut AMC out of the game. Here, because Warner Brothers went to them and worked out some arrangement, which apparently seems to be a combination of the lower take home of the initial box office receipts and the 28-day exclusivity window after the movie's been out for a month. Now Adam Aaron's on board, even though he's saying it's a novel thing. You know, he's kind of sending these warning shots, saying like, well, this time only. But this is the difference when we're talking about a business versus saving an industry. And when you look at those two statements, I really do believe, when you look at the statement from the independent cinemas there, that they are just very happy that Wonder Woman is going out to theaters because it's going to bring people in. I think Adam Aaron is happy because he was able to work out a deal where AMC gets paid. And that's what AMC needs right now. Independent theaters need movies. AMC needs money. So then the question turns to, is this a sound strategy? Is this strategy going to work? And, you know, I've been trying to figure it out in my head. And first of all, I think for theaters, no, this is a very bad strategy for them. And again, something is better than nothing. And so I understand why a lot of the exhibition folks are happy that they're not just pulling Wonder Woman out of theaters altogether. But the question remains, how much of the money is actually going to be coming from theaters? Number one, in a month, how many theaters are even going to be open? We saw hundreds of screens close just over this past weekend. It's hard to see that the theatrical exhibition business is going to be healthier in a month than it is right now. So the overall number of people going to theaters to see this movie to begin with is probably going to be pretty small. Secondly, if you are Warner Brothers, and really if this is the AT&T question, this is obviously not a play to save Wonder Woman by sending it to HBO Max simultaneously. Now, is this going to drive a lot of people to HBO Max? Yes, it is. This is by far the biggest film that has ever debuted exclusively on a streaming service. This is a big deal. This is a very big deal. This is obviously a play for AT&T to say, okay, we want to use this as a big event to get people to come in and subscribe to our service. Maybe that will work long term. I'm sure that they're going to pick up some subscribers. At the same time, last time I checked, and that was today, there's still a 7-day free trial to HBO Max. So the other question you have to ask is, how many people are going to sign up for a 7-day free trial, watch Wonder Woman 1984, and then leave? I think it's going to be a fairly substantial number. You add, sadly, to the idea that when it's accessible in this way, you are going to see a piracy problem. There's always a piracy problem. I think you're going to have an even bigger piracy problem. So the idea that this is in any way going to save Wonder Woman, I think is not sound. When this was first announced, my default reaction was kind of like, well, you know, 2020 is, pardon my French, a shit show anyway. So why not? Why not just make people happy? It's a big Christmas release. And, you know, I think this is going to help bolster some people's spirits, at least, in that they will get to see this movie. It's not yet another thing that's going to be pushed to 2021. However, I think that they are leaving a massive amount of money potentially on the table, because I think if Wonder Woman 1984 were pushed to next summer, I think you would see so much more return on that, at least to Warner Brothers. I really do think this is a corporate play. This was AT&T, perhaps, and I have no inside information, but it feels like AT&T saying, we're tired of kicking this can down the road. We maybe want to goose our numbers on HBO Max. Let's throw it on HBO Max, work out a deal with theaters. Fine, we'll show it in some theaters. There's not going to be many that are open anyway. We'll put it on HBO Max. We'll lose it for a month. It'll be gone after a month. But if you really want to watch Wonder Woman 1984, you're probably going to watch it within the first 31 days. On HBO Max. That 28-day exclusivity window is great, and it's great for theaters, but how many people are actually going to avail themselves of that? And I know that Patty Jenkins has said that, you know, they hope that their plan is to have it in theaters for a very long time so that it's still in theaters when theaters reopen. Well, I've heard that before. That's exactly what Warner Brothers said about Tenet. Their whole goal with Tenet was, we're going to play it, it's going to open small, it's going to be great in theaters, it's going to be a marathon thing, and when theaters open again, Tenet will be there for people. That's not what's happening. I think the theatrical domestic market for Wonder Woman is a wash. Honestly, it's a wash, but it's going to perhaps be somewhat positive for AT&T because you're going to be throwing some people in to HBO Max. You'll probably get a pretty good premium video on demand number for it. But theatrically, the numbers are not going to be good. Internationally, you have the Chinese release date. Hopefully, the UK is saying they could maybe open theaters soon, reopen theaters soon. But in many other countries, the rates are going up as well. So we'll see what happens internationally. But for me, this is a very mixed bag. I don't necessarily think it's great news for the movie and how it's going to perform, because I think it just muddies the water up. I think it's great for a lot of fans that want to see this movie, and that now on Christmas Day, hopefully it's good and are going to be able to sit and enjoy it. So I think that's a positive for them. But all of these moves that the different chains and theaters and corporations that run theaters and make movies have done thus far have kind of seemed to me like they're just kind of making it up as they go along and trying things. Just, well, does this work? Is this going to work? This is the first move where it seems to me like this is a corporation that has looked at the environment out there and said, we're going to make a very calculated move here. It's a long-term play, and I think to a certain extent they're sacrificing Wonder Woman 1984 to the altar of building up HBO Max. Is that fair? I don't know. We're in very unprecedented times, but I don't necessarily think it's all great for the movie itself. I do feel somewhat bad for Patty Jenkins, because she has been so forward about the fact that she's committed to the theatrical experiences. She wants fans to experience this in theaters. But there does come a time where this is out of her hands, particularly when it goes up to AT&T. It isn't just at the Warner Brothers level. And even in her tweet announcing the move, she said, "The time has come. At some point, you have to choose to share any love and joy you have to give over everything else. We love our movie as we love our fans, so we truly hope that our film brings a little bit of joy and reprieve to all of you this holiday season. Watch it in theaters where it is made safe to do so. Check out the great work theaters have done to make it so, and available in the safety of your home on HBO Max where it is not. Happy holidays to all of you. We hope you enjoy our film as much as we enjoyed making it." And, that's a great statement, and I think she understands that this is a time of compromise. But to me, I can feel a little bit of that heartbreak of, like, we held out and we fought as long as we could, but ultimately, this is the move that has to be done. If studios want to keep doing this because it's a success, I think there is a showdown coming. I think there's a big showdown coming, but we're not going to know yet until we see the numbers. If we see the numbers, we still don't know what happened with Mulan, but until we see some reaction to how HBO Max did with Wonder Woman 1984. And now with Wonder Woman 1984 kind of coming into theaters, we were able to sketch out the rest of our 2020 release schedule. And this is funny. I went back and looked. This schedule, I generated this schedule less than 2 months ago. So the September 28th show is when I debuted this schedule, because this was the updated release schedule at that time of what was going to come out through the end of the year and then going into the beginning of 2021. Less than 2 months later, this is what that schedule looks like now. So we had No Time to Die moved, Soul with the Disney Plus. The Croods is still coming out, but it has a shortened theatrical window. Free Guy moved to 2021. Coming to America is now moving to Amazon. It's going to debut next year. Death on the Nile is moved to 2021. Dune is moved to 2021. Wonder Woman is still coming out theatrical, but it now is a hybrid HBO Max release. Escape Room 2 moved. Mortal Kombat, I just read that the producer last week revealed that that movie has been delayed indefinitely. Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, which was going to come out in January, it is now pushed. It's supposed to come out now almost a calendar year after its original release date. And then, as we mentioned last week, Respect, the Aretha Franklin biopic that was scheduled for January 15th, has now moved to August 13th, 2021. So that entire release schedule in less than 2 months was completely wrecked. I'm working on compiling a new one, but almost at the same point, it's like, why bother? Because all it's going to do is change as we persist, as this crisis persists, and as theaters remain closed. There was some other exhibition news, though, that is tangentially related to what's been going on. The first one is some news from Cineworld. Now, Cineworld is the owner of Regal, which is, along with AMC, they're the two biggest theater chains here in the United States. Cineworld actually released some financial information, which is that they have raised $450 million in debt that, combined with other cost-cutting measures, they say is going to offer them an additional $750 million in liquidity in order for them to weather the pandemic. And how does that tie into Wonder Woman 1984? Well, remember when this original deal between AMC and Universal to shorten the window, and AMC gets a cut of the premium video on demand profits, Cineworld was the chain that said, this move doesn't make any business sense to us. whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, we don't even know if Regal's going to be reopening their theaters here in the United States to show Wonder Woman 1984. They have not signed any agreement with any studio about shortening the theatrical window. They did not release a statement about Warner Brothers' decision with Wonder Woman 1984 or commit to showing the movie there. And with this additional raising $750 million in liquidity, raising funds and also, different cost cutting and financial moves, this makes it appear that they are very prepared to weather the pandemic by continuing to, yes, take on debt, but to stay liquid and not bring in money from streaming deals, not bring in money from shortened theatrical windows or allowing movies to play in shortened windows by taking a bigger cut of the box office. As of right now, Regal is not on board with these measures. They remain committed to a long and exclusive theatrical window. And when you talk about a showdown coming, this is going to be big because Cineplex, which is the largest theater chain in Canada, announced that they have signed on to the deal that we talked about last week that AMC first struck with Universal, and also that Cinemark signed on to with Universal to shorten the window in exchange for a chunk of the PVOD money. So we have the biggest theater chain in Canada, two of the biggest theater chains with AMC and Cinemark here in North America now having signed that deal with Universal, AMC signing off on the Wonder Woman 1984 deal. Regal now appears to be the holdout with its parent company Cineworld. It could very well be that they will not play movies that other chains like AMC and Cinemark that they've made deals with will play because they want to fight for the theatrical window. So that's another showdown. Is Regal going to sign on to these deals that allow for a shortened window, or are they going to stick to their guns and say, no, if you're not going to play it in the window, then we're not going to play it in our theaters? And that would mean nothing from Universal. That would mean nothing for no Wonder Woman 1984. These are the kinds of things that are coming down the turnpike, especially as theater closures lessen, hopefully, as the vaccine is rolled out into 2021, as there's some kind of stable theatrical exhibition business being reestablished. These are the kinds of things that we're going to look into in the second and third and fourth quarter of next year, and probably going into 2022, is as the future of this business is being mapped out, will there be chains like Regal that are holdouts that are not going to sign on to these new things? And is that going to be a positive or a negative for them? So I know that obviously right now the focus is on the massive health crisis and financial crisis and all of everything else related to it that is engulfing the United States, North America, the world right now. But these are the interesting burning questions that are set up down the road as we clean up and look at the after effects of what's going on, because these are things that probably would have happened anyway, but we have now been launched into a universe where they're happening much more quickly and with much less organization than I think anybody had planned for. So with all that complicated stuff being said, let's go back to a simpler time. And this is our box office flashback, where we look back at a time where people could go to the movies whenever they wanted. And we're going back, I could not believe this, we're going back 25 years. 25 years ago, this past weekend, November 24th through 26th, 1995, Toy Story. A landmark film, a groundbreaking film, revolutionizing the entire medium of animation, opened its first week, topped the box office with $29 million. GoldenEye, there in its second week, the first Pierce Brosnan movie, and effectively somewhat of a relaunch for the James Bond franchise after 6 years off after the Timothy Dalton films, there at number 2. In its third week, Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, with $13.4 million, a massive hit, part of that just miracle run for Jim Carrey from like 1994 to 1998, 99. Then Money Train with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes in its first week at $10.6 million. And in fifth place in its first week, Casino from Martin Scorsese, a movie that I like quite a bit. I like it, I think, maybe a little bit more than a lot of even Scorsese fans do. That at $9.9 million. It should be noted that it was in about 1,000 less theaters than most of these other movies, but still opening at number 5 in its first week. So what a run. And just to share a personal memory, I remember around Thanksgiving of 1995, my uncle and I, who I talk about my uncle a lot, he and I went on a triple feature one day. And that top 3, those were the 3 movies that we went to see. We went to see GoldenEye, Ace Ventura 2, and Toy Story. And so just seeing those lined up 1, 2, 3 like that definitely brings back a lot of memories. That was when I was really getting into not just movies, but the movie business and the movie industry and box office and everything else like that. So that era is kind of fun for me to revisit. Let's look back at some other notable films that came out this week in box office history. In 1931, Frankenstein from James Whale, one of the great Universal monster films, opened. In 1967, The Producers, which was Mel Brooks' first film as a director, hit theaters. He would later go on to win an Academy Award for writing that movie. In 1976, Rocky hit theaters. It was on its way to Best Picture. Also not on the chart, but in 1975, the previous year, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which would go on to win Best Picture that year, opened the same weekend. And then in 1986, it's not really a landmark film for a lot of people, but it is for me, An American Tail, which is the first movie that I can remember ever seeing in a theater, opened on This Week in Box Office History in 1986. And as always, we're going to end the show looking at the streaming charts to see what people are watching at home, and we will start with Amazon. Megan is Missing. The power of TikTok and social media continues, #1 for a second straight week. Then The New Mutants, which hit Blu-ray and 4K and premium video on demand, is there at #2. Come Play, which is currently in theaters but had a shortened theatrical window, that is at #3. Unhinged, which was the first film and it took great pains to be the first film released back in theaters nationwide after they were shut down, is there at #4. Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials at #5. Love and Monsters, I guess if you want to have a Dylan O'Brien-a-thon, you can watch #5 and 6. Then at #7, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, one of my favorite Christmas movies. Mulan, 2020's Mulan at #8. The Doorman at #9. And Bill and Ted Face the Music at #10. Those are all holdovers from last week. Let's look at what people are watching over on iTunes, and if we look at those charts, The New Mutants is #1 on that chart. #2 is Unhinged. #3, Iron Mask. At #4, My Cousin Vinny, which I think is hilarious, and I wonder if it's related to the invocation of this movie in court by one of the president's members of his legal team. I guess a lot of people were reminded that it's a really good movie, which, by the way, it is. It's there at #4. At #5 is Embattled, another original film. At #6, A Rainy Day in New York. At #7, The Nest. Elf, as people get into the holiday spirit. At #10 is The Personal History of David Copperfield, which is another film that was pushed in release due to the pandemic. But at #9 is Jiu-Jitsu. And I know functionally very little about this film, except that it is about a jiu-jitsu tournament and that it stars Nicolas Cage, or at least co-stars Nicolas Cage. And that's all I need to know. Perhaps over this long weekend, if I have the time and the curiosity, I may have to dive into that, because really Nicolas Cage, just about anything he does is a must-see for me. So Jiu-Jitsu there on the top 10 for iTunes. And then let's look at what people are watching over on Netflix. At #1, one of their new Netflix originals, The Princess Switch, switched again at #1. At #2, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, and animation, always a big hit on Netflix, particularly as more kids are home from school. At #3, The Grinch. #4, Jingle Jangle. #5, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which all holiday films. You're going to see more and more of these here. At #6 is Alien Christmas, which is actually a short animated film. At #7, If Anything Happens, I Love You, also a short film. Shorts are listed on the film chart for Netflix, so even if it's not feature length, it shows up on the movie charts. Then at #8 is The Christmas Chronicles, and Christmas Chronicles 2 comes out this week, I believe on Wednesday, just ahead of Thanksgiving. You can find my review for that here on the channel. I actually enjoyed both Christmas Chronicles movies, but I think maybe the second more than the first. Then at #9, I guess people needed to catch up on the plot for The Princess Switch switched again, because The Princess Switch, the first one, is there at #9. And at #10, Holiday, which is a Netflix original film. That's been on the chart for a few weeks now. And that wraps up all the chart news and information that I have today. It was a very broccoli-heavy show, so thank you so much for sticking around to listen to all the nitty-gritty and all the thoughts about the future of the business and of the industry. These are dark times, and the hope was that as we got to the end of the year that there might be a light at the end of the tunnel. I think there is, but it's a very vague light, and I think that there's a lot of rough stuff between here and there, both exhibition-wise and, just kind of in general. So thank you to everyone who has watched, and please enjoy, if you do celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday here in North America, please enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday. Please do so safely. There are so many advisories out right now about travel, about gathering, etc. I know this is a time when everybody wants to be with their family. I very much would love to be with my entire family. I will not be this year, just out of an abundance of caution and to protect them, particularly older members of my family. So however you choose to celebrate Thanksgiving, please, please, please celebrate it safely. This is such a lucrative weekend, usually the weekend before Thanksgiving, and it'll be so great if we could all be with our entire families in a year to go to whatever big movie is opening and just feel like life has resumed. So it has been a long path to get there. There's a little bit more ahead of us. So please continue to stay safe, be well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.